It struck at 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday like a clean incision. A cruise confirmation bloomed in our family cloud, bright and damning. Jacob Hart, balcony suite, champagne package, couples massage, Miami departure. Another name sat beside us like perfume on a stranger's scarf. Elise Monroe, the same smile that lingered too long at our holiday party. He was supposed to be in Seattle at a leadership summit next week. Instead, the ocean had our anniversary budget and my husband's attention. My hand didn't shake. Something inside me went diamond still. Every late night stitched itself into one seamless, breathless lie. I read the cabin number twice like it could unwrite itself. I remembered Elise's ring flashing under Boston ballroom lights. Her voice had carried, bright with promises about June in Napa. Her fiancé's name surfaced from memory like a buoy. Cole Rivers. His social feed glowed with devotion. Sunrise workouts. Earnest captions. A solo trip post matched the cruise dates with cruel precision. I booked the neighboring cabin before my tea cooled on the table. Symmetry felt like justice wearing a velvet mask and heels. I traced deck plans the way you memorize a face you're leaving. Miami, 5 nights. Identical excursions. A wall thin as a whisper. Then I found Cole's email and wrote, "We should talk." He answered in minutes with 2 words that steadied me. Where? When? We met under pendant lights in a Back Bay cafe. 2 strangers, 1 ruin, and a pact forming between breaths. The city outside kept moving while we chose our storm. We agreed on elegance, not spectacle, and precision over rage. Truth would not shout. It would glide into rooms like silk. We would be everywhere their fantasy pretended we could not be. Every coincidence would be choreography, not luck or anger. We would end the lie the way it began, smiling. Cole handled logistics with the calm of a well-written calendar. 2 cabins, adjacent, check-ins staggered to avoid immediate chaos. Dining times mapped, shore excursions mirrored, routes rehearsed. I learned the ship's app like a second language for consequences. He gathered receipts. I gathered screenshots. We gathered resolve. At home, Jacob asked me to help choose a tie for Seattle. I held blue silk, wondering how many times it had lied. He kissed my forehead, and I cataloged the scent of Elise. My reflection practiced the smile I'd weaponize at sea. I ironed his shirt and planned my red dress. On my nightstand, I sorted documents into the shape of clarity. Bank statements, mileage points, coy emails that thought they were invisible. A timeline emerged like shoreline at low tide, undeniable and plain. I labeled every month he borrowed from our vows. The calendar blistered with proof, and my hands stayed steady. Before sleep, I reread Cole's message about keeping boundaries. No melodrama, no violence, only consequences written in daylight. We would not become the worst versions of our pain. We would become authors of an ending that honored us. When dawn arrived, it found me unafraid and already packed. Miami's heat rose off the pavement like unsent confessions. Porters moved luggage as if carrying strangers' unfinished stories. I boarded alone, sunglasses holding my history at arm's length. The ship gleamed, indifferent and enormous, a floating theater of truth. Cole texted, dockside, eyes open, playing it casual. My keycard flashed green on cabin 1018, a thin wall miracle. On the other side waited the suite where vows would suffocate. I placed my ear gently and heard only the hum of air. Silence can be louder than laughter when you're listening for ghosts. I unpacked a red dress that felt like a reckoning. At sunset, I found Cole at the upper deck bar. We toasted with seltzer that tasted like restraint and purpose. Across the room, Jacob arrived with Elise on his arm. They glowed like thieves who believed in their perfect alibi. I smiled because the ocean loves an honest storm. Jacob saw me first and forgot how to breathe for seconds. I lifted my glass as if blessing a distant acquaintance. Elise turned, paled, and then noticed Cole beside me. 4 people, 1 truth, suspended like glass before breaking. Seattle looks tropical, I murmured, and the lie cracked. They fled, a blur of panic wrapped in expensive linen. We didn't chase. We let silence finish what shock began. My pulse slowed into a rhythm that felt like ownership. Cole exhaled laughter that hurt less than it did yesterday. The moon rose, bright as a signature on a final page. Morning brought sunscreen and a practiced, weightless smile. We appeared at breakfast 2 tables to their left. Small talk with strangers softened the edges of the room. Jacob's laugh sounded borrowed, a tone he'd never used with me. Elise kept touching her ring like it could swear for her. On the pool deck, our towels unfolded in their line of sight. I complimented a child's floaty, not the woman beside him. Exposure works better when it's not a speech, but a breeze. They whispered themselves into a corner nobody had drawn. Guilt is excellent at making small spaces feel smaller. The shore excursion loaded buses like field trips for adults. We boarded last and sat exactly 1 row behind them. Cole asked me about architecture with theatrical innocence. Elise stiffened as ruins appeared like metaphors for promises. Jacob swallowed hard every time the guide said the word ancient. At the beach, Cole waved to a bartender he had befriended. 2 blue cocktails arrived, salted like tears that wouldn't fall. I lifted mine toward Jacob without ever saying his name. Elise flinched when Cole said, "Fancy seeing faithful love abroad." The wind pretended not to hear the crowd's soft gasp. We left before they could decide who they were now. Not a chase, not a victory, just calibrated presence. The ship's horn sounded like an omen with manners. Back in my cabin, the wall hummed with nervous quiet. I wrote 1 sentence in my journal. I survived today. That night, I wore the red dress that remembered my body. It did not ask for forgiveness. It owed no one an apology. Cole met me by the piano where Mercy played softly. We laughed about nothing until it sounded like freedom. Across velvet chairs, their table wilted beneath imagined eyes. I ordered champagne and sent one to their table. The waiter delivered it like a hymn in crystal. Jacob stared at the bubbles as if they formed excuses. Elise's smile tried to hold, then trembled, then fell. Champagne is honest. It lifts what people try to hide. I excused myself and circled the room deliberately slow. Every step said I know. Every glance said I'm fine. A woman at the next table squeezed my fingers once. Her eyes carried a language we both already spoke. Sisterhood arrives unannounced when betrayal finds a stage. Back at my seat, I placed an unlabeled envelope beside me. Inside were only dates, not even names, just coordinates of truth. Cole and I did not open it. We let it breathe. Their attention snagged on the white edge like a hook. Anticipation is sometimes the most merciful punishment available. Later, at the railing, sea spray kissed the ache from my face. I thought about children we postponed and summers we repurposed. About birthdays that wore meetings like unwanted coats. About all the ways I loved a man who loved elsewhere. Then I thought about me, and the thinking didn't hurt. We scheduled nothing. We arrived everywhere they chose to hide. Elevators, stairwells, quiet corridors that smell like shampooed carpets. Polite nods became mirrors, and mirrors became trials. Elise avoided my eyes and found none that forgave her. Jacob began to speak in fragments and unlanded sentences. At breakfast, I asked the server for lilies by name. Jacob once forgot which flowers meant home to my heart. The server returned with white petals, calm and luminous. I said thank you loudly enough to be overheard. Elise stared like the vase had learned to accuse. Cole chatted with a photographer about candid light and angles. Some favors cost nothing when the story is worth telling. Pictures captured hands mid-argument, smiles at half-mast, haunted eyes. We bought none of them. We only needed the memory. Truth keeps its own album whether we print it or not. On the jogging track, Jacob tried gentleness made of apology. "Nora, we can talk," he offered, voice like dull scissors. "We are talking," I answered, and kept my steady pace. He fell behind, winded by a distance he'd manufactured. Behind me, the ocean refused to translate his excuses. That evening, I left a note under their door in silence. "Tomorrow, formal night. Wear something honest. No threats, no promises. Only a time and a table number." Cole texted one word that matched my pulse. "Ready." Sleep came like a verdict that didn't need to shout. I zipped black silk that fit like a decision finally made. Pearls rested at my throat like a quiet, ancestral chorus. Cole's suit held him like a steady, unwavering sentence. We walked into the dining room as if it knew our names. Crystal chimed. Gossip inhaled. The air tilted toward reckoning. Their table for 2 pretended to be an island and failed. We asked to join them, and etiquette said yes for them. A waiter poured champagne that remembered last night's lesson. Silverware aligned with military precision, blessing our restraint. I placed the white envelope between knives and breath. Jacob reached for it as if reaching for a past tense. Dates, ports, Rooms and miles, arranged like constellations. Elise whispered my name like it might answer for her. Cole folded his napkin, calm as weather you can predict. Silence expanded until even the violins refused to soothe. I spoke first, because it was my life to narrate. This isn't an accident. It's architecture built beside my house. His eyes filled, not with love, but with recognition. She trembled for the future she had set on fire. I lifted my glass to truth and took a measured sip. We stood before dessert and left the envelope behind. No applause, no scene, no need for sharper weapons. Outside, stars stitched a new map across the water. Cole's hand found mine, steady. Nothing more, nothing less. Tomorrow would write consequences. Tonight belonged to dignity. The ship woke quietly, as if ashamed of what it had witnessed. Whispers trailed us through corridors scented with cold perfume. Jacob and Elise avoided everyone, carrying guilt like damp linen. Cole and I ate breakfast in sunlight sharp enough to cleanse. Every sip of coffee tasted like peace pretending to be ordinary. Announcements hummed through speakers with bureaucratic grace. Jacob Hart and Elise Monroe, please report to the purser's office. We walked by accident, on purpose, past the door left slightly open. Inside, papers rustled, and the word fraudulent repeated softly. Their faces turned gray, not from seasickness, but from exposure. The corporate representative read calmly from highlighted sheets. Business accounts used for leisure, policies broken beyond repair. Cole's quiet inquiries had reached the right investors at the right time. I didn't smile, but the calm inside me felt almost holy. Justice, when clean, doesn't gloat. It simply restores balance. They stumbled out 20 minutes later, stripped of charm and denial. Jacob saw me and looked like a man meeting his reflection. He mouthed my name, but I offered him no sound in return. Elise trailed behind, mascara bruised beneath her eyes. The ship kept sailing, indifferent to their slow unraveling. That evening, Cole and I shared one last drink on deck. Neither of us toasted. The silence was ceremony enough. He said, "It's over," and I answered, "No, it's beginning. Not revenge, not triumph, just the gentle unbinding of pain." The horizon glowed gold, the first honest light in months. Miami shimmered ahead like a mirror cleaned of fingerprints. Passengers packed, laughed, kissed, and pretended nothing broke at sea. Jacob kept his head low, clutching a folder that held his ruin. Elise wore sunglasses too dark for the morning they deserved. I stepped off the ship lighter than I had ever been. A courier waited near customs with my name printed neatly. He handed me a small suitcase and an envelope sealed with calm. Inside, hotel keys and divorce papers ready for signatures. The handwriting was mine. The freedom was also mine. Closure, I realized, doesn't always need to hurt to be final. Cole joined me by the taxi line, silent, careful, real. We didn't speak of them. They were background noise now. He said only, "You did what you came for," and I nodded. "Now comes the part they'll never understand," I said. "What's that?" he asked. "Peace." The city heat rose like applause from the pavement. I took one long look at the ship shrinking behind us. It had carried betrayal out to sea and brought truth home. I didn't hate it. It had become part of my story's spine. The taxi smelled like new leather and possibility. When I reached the hotel, I didn't cry or collapse. I unpacked, ordered room service, and opened the curtains wide. Outside, gulls circled as if rewriting the sky's dialogue. I lay back and let the quiet hold me for once. Sometimes healing sounds like nothing at all. Days passed softly, like polite houseguests who cleaned as they stayed. I filed for divorce with hands steady and signatures graceful. Jacob didn't fight. Shame is the quickest negotiator I've known. His messages were short, remorseful, and unworthy of answers. The silence between us became the final vow we kept. I moved into a small apartment near the harbor. The air smelled like salt and beginnings that don't require forgiveness. I painted the walls a pale yellow I'd always loved, but he hadn't. Sunlight pooled on the floor like permission newly granted. Every box I unpacked felt like a promise to myself. Cole called once a week, never too long, never too heavy. We talked about therapy, work, and nights that finally slept. Sometimes we laughed about the absurd choreography of revenge, but mostly we spoke of ordinary things. Bread, coffee, breathing. Healing, I learned, loves the mundane. It thrives there quietly. I started running at dawn, tracing the edge of the water. The rhythm of my feet matched the slow repair inside. Each mile built distance between who I was and who I'm becoming. The sky opened wider with every inhale of salt. Freedom, I found, doesn't shout. It exhales. By the end of summer, my lawyer sent the final decree. The envelope trembled in my hand only before I smiled. Paper thin, yet it held years of unspoken rescue. I burned nothing. I simply filed it away. Some ghosts don't deserve fire, only forgetting. My apartment became a gallery of small, honest moments. Photos of friends, not trophies of endurance or survival. A vase of lilies sat where apologies used to bloom. I bought them myself, finally understanding their scent. It smelled like choosing me over anyone else. Work returned to rhythm. Laughter returned to tone. Colleagues stopped tiptoeing around my supposed fragility. They didn't realize I was already stronger than my myth. I drank coffee without waiting for someone to join me. Solitude tasted better than attention ever had. One afternoon, the cruise line sent a promotional email. It offered half-price fares for romantic winter escapes. I almost deleted it, then caught myself smiling. The irony no longer burned. It simply existed and passed. Some symbols lose power when you reclaim their meaning. Cole texted later that night. Tokyo deal closed. Drinks? His name still carried familiarity, but not dependence. We met by the pier, 2 survivors, not soldiers. He spoke of rebuilding trust with himself, not with others. I told him I was learning the same delicate art. As we parted, he said, "The ocean's still waiting, you know." I nodded. Maybe someday. For the right reasons. He smiled like a man untied from history. I walked home in moonlight clean enough to forgive. Freedom hummed like a song I'd known before words. Winter dressed the coast in glass and gold. I had a new job, a small circle, and peace like furniture. Jacob lived elsewhere, a roomer with lessons attached. Elise faced charges for misuse of funds. The news confirmed. Karma had good timing when you stopped needing it. Cole moved east for a project and visited once in a while. We shared meals that never flirted with the past. We talked about books, new habits, and steady mornings. Friendship became the only form of love that felt true. Neither of us needed rescue. We'd already done that alone. I redecorated my space again, slow and deliberate. Each choice felt like an act of authorship, not repair. A blue sofa, white curtains, a framed quote above the desk. You survived what was meant to break you. Every letter looked like a quiet revolution. Sometimes I still dream of that ship under silver clouds. But in my dreams, I'm standing at the railing alone. No ghosts whisper, no names echo, no walls divide, just the sound of water and the pulse of my own breath. The sea no longer reminds me of betrayal. It mirrors resilience. I wrote one final entry in my journal before closing it forever. Love isn't what they ruined. It's what I reclaimed. Ink dried slow, deliberate, like the end of a prayer. I placed the book on the shelf beside fresh beginnings. Healing, I decided, was the most elegant revenge. New Year's Eve came with gentle music and no expectations. I stood on a pier as fireworks rehearsed forgiveness overhead. The air smelled of champagne, not memory. Cole arrived with 2 coffees and a smile made of ease. We didn't need to define what we had become. He raised his cup. To peace that doesn't ask permission. I clinked his gently, warmth spilling into cold night air. We watched the ocean shimmer with new invitations. Not the scene of pain, but the stage of reinvention. Our laughter blended with the crowds like it belonged there. Midnight struck, and I closed my eyes without wishing. I didn't need luck. I had clarity, which lasts longer. The past had become a museum I could visit without trembling. The future was a horizon asking only that I show up. And for the first time, I was ready to walk toward it. Later, back home, I stood by my window and smiled. The city slept while I stayed awake in gratitude. The mirror reflected someone lighter, someone free. I whispered to her, "You did it. You came back whole." Outside, dawn waited to begin her shift. As the first light touched my face, I breathed and believed. The ocean was still there somewhere, vast and forgiving. It no longer carried my pain, only my proof. I turned from the window, steady and unafraid, because this time, I was sailing forward alone, by choice.